Okay, so we're going to continue with the in URL. That's what we discussed previously. I guess was able to get some intro on what in URL is about, or at least to understand what the URLs contain. So now I'm just going to flip back onto a slide, which is going to give you a recall on what we discussed uh, when we were doing the indexing part or learning about what gets extracted, what is supposed to be indexed by the search engine. So this was the slide, I believe. Now, when we are doing in URL, we are talking about all those links that are set on a content page that gets indexed. So to say that it is only going to query just the link to a landing page is not enough. It actually goes a step further and starts to query everything that is contained on those pages as URLs or links. Okay. If I'm using the term in URL or URL alone, let's start with what URL is versus what links are. Basically, it's the terminology that we don't need to get into too much detail because the distinction is more important for the programmers um, and not for us, really. So, as far as links are concerned, everything is URL or all URLs are to be considered as links. But differentiation quickly is that links are basically basically different kinds. They can be hyperlink, they could be uh, anchor links and inbound links, outbound links, internal, external links. So it is important for the programmers, but links are something which has the characteristics of being clickable or being executable as you click on them. So in a way, they're hyper or they are dynamic in nature. Um, Whereas URLs can be non-links or could be something that is universally recognized as a structure of how you are going to direct the user to get to the landing pages. Uh, and URLs may not necessarily be clickable. There is a theory in URL, the the structure can be slightly different, which means it can take you to a specific location on the servers. There is the type of protocols which is called FTP protocol, for instance. That is part of the URL. So I don't want to confuse you much. Just to make it easy, let's just suppose if I use the word URL instead of link or link instead of URL, it means the same for everyone to be considering it as a stem or as a length of direction or directing you to the landing page. So when you are looking at how the links gets indexed in the first place, so they're easy to locate or it can be queried into, you would see that the simulation, which is shown right here, is extracting the links from that page or from the domain called airsassociation.org. By the way, this is an old illustration, but technically it is correct. The only difference is AIRS association no longer exists. Instead, it's AOFIRS. So let's suppose a association of as airsassociation.org has all these links on one single page. This is what is extracted from when we asked the search to uh, give us, or when we did the simulation, we were able to extract all these links from one page. So you could see that it has a different, it has a similar structure, but different wordings in it. Different files, different names of folders, different landing page titles. So all of these are extracted, and these are queried for the words they contain in them. If we go back to where we left on page 80, this is just showing the one set of links, um, which is at the which is running behind the header portion of a content page. And these are enclosed by or noted as belonging to the tag called href, which is right here. The page itself contains a lot of links, which could be internal links that is taking you to this to other pages in the same domain. So you're cross navigating within the same domain. It can be links that are going to be clickable links, and they would take you outside of the domain to somewhere else, as if they're referral links. And same way, there are inbound links which are bringing the traffic onto your own or that particular website. So inbound, outbound links, they're basically a collection, or they're floating around all across the internet. And sometimes we want to capture all of those links belonging to, let's suppose, if I want to give you an example, just to, let me get rid of this first. Okay. Let's just take an example of finding all the links that belong to AOFIRS. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a search operator called link. It's LINK, and then put colon sign followed by AOFIRS. Oh gosh, what's happening? All right. .org. And when I use link colon, AOFIRS is the website or the domain that I'm asking the search to find everything that the search engine has indexed for us, which contains the word aofirs.org. And when we are doing a link colon query, we are not asking the search to find it only on our website, but other websites may also contain our link that has a part which is aofirs.org. I can query it this way, and I can also query it another way where I don't have to put the extension, and I could just say AOFIRS. I get more links. I get 10,600 links. Here I got 5,500 links. And there is a reason to it. And for that, once again, I would need the notepad. Let's pick up when I'm doing aofirs.org, it is finding me everything in the links on top. These on top are the links. And I'm usually I'm asked, there is a bit of a confusion with the links that you see over here versus when you actually click on the site, the links sort of changes or it is not exactly how it is laid out over here. So to give you an idea what this is and to recognize why these are slightly different when they appear in Google search, let me show you an example in this. You can see that this is a comparison of what the actual links are and how the Google search has changed it or has converted it into what we call breadcrumbs style, which is simpler to understand because it has the wordings and it wouldn't have anything complicated like some of the links you would see have notations and symbols and all kinds of characters in it, and they're much long. Some of them don't even have the wordings, but rather, instructions like, doc, for example, there is something called doc, which means, which has an understanding different from what the user could interpret. So that was a complex way of writing it, and a lot of code is written that way. Even today, a lot of websites have those kind of complicated links, or anything that is contained in them is not usually conforming to the style that Google would want it to be. So what happened with Google search is that they started to give instructions to programmers to not to create those complex links because it becomes difficult for it to map it or query it against in URL colon. And it was confusing. So, and then on the other hand, the programmers were contesting that, they can't change like huge websites and individual links to conform to exactly how it is appearing or how the Google search wants it, which is a breadcrumb style. So they came up with the solution, and the solution was that they would mask the complexity of the long URLs or the complex URLs and create an easier version of it, which is now become an automated process. And that is really to somehow be able to comply with Google's rules of setting up URLs, as well as for the programmers to not have to change the original links, which are masked or which are converted into, not converted, but rather simulated as the breadcrumbs that you are seeing right here. So what used to be was complex links, very long ones. On the left hand side, you can see this is how it used to be. Now they have changed it, or it is now appearing this way. Okay. But when we are doing in URL query, it is actually not reading just the part that is converted into breadcrumbs, but the underlying links are also, or the ones that are masked, or those that are there for, those are permanent links. Those are queried, in fact. So whatever the wordings are in the part where the links are longer and original links, that's where it's going to look for the information. Um, as an example, in this one, you could see that there are two types of links. Also, there is a character to the links, or there is a performance or function which is a differentiator between two type of links. But let's suppose the one that I'm pointing to right now down here could be the original link, or the one that is running behind another link on top. So just think of it or assume that the link that is more complex is shown here and less complex at the top, and this gets converted into breadcrumbs. So if the .com is followed by a backslash, it is shown in the snippet as an arrow sign pointing in one direction. And same thing with the other backslash. So then it becomes kind of a breadcrumb um, simulation. But coming back to the two characteristics of link, one link on top is an example of something we call static link, a link that takes you to a page or the content that is static is not a moving content. It is not any kind of search. It is not a form that you are filling in. It is not a document that you are concealing or anything that is easily visible without having to go through any processing or any computation or anything in dynamic that is dynamic in nature content wise. That is not what the static link is about. So it is simple and it is somewhat similar to what you are looking at the top. And I think we did this example earlier. But when you find a link that is appearing or which is taking you to a point um, where some sort of processing is to be done, like registration of any sort, or if it is a search that is hiding the databases behind, and the link, when you look on top, would have a structure in that situation where it is going to stop you at a certain point or it is doing any dynamic processing, it is going to appear very different. One example is this one right here. And this link is not non-indexable in the sense that it's not going to take you further from when you get to this page. And when you're doing in URL, it is not going to search for, things like the question mark here, the word DOCID, and so on, and the numbers like 7824682 and so on. And just because it is a dynamic link and because it is intentionally made to to not allow for the search engine to take you beyond or behind this page to access any data, that's where it's going to hold you back. And when people do the hacking or they want to do some sort of penetration into the secure documents, they usually look for or scan for these type of links. In this link, you would see that there is, let's not worry about port 80, that's concealed in these days, so it's not going to be part of the link. However, everything else, like after domainsherpa.com backslash listening mode, listening mode could be the page or the title of the page where it's taken you. And after that, you would see things like a question mark, for instance. Question mark means that it is going to start a query. Query is dynamic, which means processing and permissions and taking you to the databases. That's what the question mark means for any information that goes beyond the question mark. So after that, you could see the word DOCID, which is a document ID, is equal to, and this is encrypted, or let's say it is concealed under a number, or it is given a number, or set of numbers which are dynamically generated. So 7824682 all this number would mean something for the document. It is a key to the document or a unique ID, followed by everything else that you are seeing, which is highlighted in blue. And then at the very end, you would see another sign, which is a hash sign. That means it is the record itself or that particular piece of information extracted from the database. But you could see that after the hashtag, there is complex numbers, which is alphanumeric characters, as I can tell. So these are another set of encryption, which is a higher level encryption. Nevertheless, these are then dynamic codes or dynamic links, as well as the kind of links that at times are masked by the uh, by putting it as breadcrumbs. Okay. So that's for your information to understand that when you're doing in URL, it is going to query all this part, and it is going to query even the URLs that are masked URLs, but only going to query the wordings and not the signs or nothing else, or anything after question mark for sure will not be queried or will not be matched for your search terms. By the way, another important aspect of figuring out if the site that you have clicked onto is a genuine site, or it is not the kind of sites which at times you would notice um, that simulates as if it is the original site itself, mostly coming to you in your emails as clickable links. When you click on them, you find it's taken you to PayPal, for instance, or PayPal site. And when you look at the page, it is going to have the same look and same format as PayPal. But if you notice in the address bar, the link itself would have a characteristic or would have a way of writing them. Either it could be close enough wording that would confuse you, or you may not pay a lot of attention to it because the words are very close to the original name. Or there is another aspect of it which you may want to consider as a sign of knowing whether that is actually originally coming from PayPal or not. So instead of showing you in this one, I'm going to use the notepad again to give you an idea. In the domain registrar is not finicky about the naming of what you want to get, with different variations of something that may be a major brand. So if someone goes and buys a domain called, just give me a moment, buys a domain called, buy something that is looking like PayPal dot. These are fake domains. Well, not really fake. They're legally obtained, but they're not actually the correct domains. It's not from the vendor, PayPal itself. Only because it is bought. Because you see, when you are buying domains, you can buy something with the dots in between. You can buy different combinations or a long length of domains, like even this you can buy, you know, but these are not coming from the original source. Sometimes we get duped is because we confuse it with subdomains. You know how some domains are divided into subdomains. As an example, this is Yahoo domain, and these are the real ones coming from the original source. But notice that the main domain of yahoo.com is split into mail.yahoo.com, news.yahoo. because this is a huge website, and for technical reasons, just to improve on efficiencies of accessing data, especially it is if it is really voluminous, and you need a better organization and better functioning, and to divide the load on the site, you may want to split the main domain into subdomains, which means that it is a subdomain to the main or an extension of the main domain. So if it is mail that you click on, if you decide to use your email box, you would see that in the top, in the address bar, the domain now looks like mail.yahoo.com. If it is news, it will look news.yahoo.com. And so it has a way of writing, or how the subdomains are structured, is that it is got the subdomain section or the category like mail first, followed by the actual domain itself. So this is a real domain. If it was yahoo.mail.com, it would not be the real domain. So you can always look at the address bar in case you want to verify something as being originally coming from the source itself. Uh, Sorry about that. Then it has to be, this is correct domains, domain naming. Okay. If the mail.yahoo.com was written like, or if it appears like this, it is incorrect, or it is not coming from the original source. Or if it is yahoo.mail.net, it is incorrect. So you can see that just looking at the structure of how it is set, it is not really following the convention correctly. And therefore, I have to get rid of this. Second. We'll get to the link operator later, but I'm just showing the reason I showed you link in two ways, with the domain name and with just the name of the business itself, as bringing two different sets of record, is for a reference to when we learn when we get into in URL, you will be able to connect with it. But the importance of URL is such that the Google search has come up with the operator link colon, only to give you an idea that it has that significance to finding the links outside of the actual domain, or where the wording is to be matched in links. I'm going to go back to other examples. Sometimes in domain, when we are querying the domains, we use in URL to include certain extensions or certain type of, um, you know, uh, certain type of attributes that make that URL specific to a certain region or a certain type of business. So if we have to use in URL to find sites that have .edu, .gov, .mil, these are called top level domains. It's not important to know if it's top level or not. What is important is for you to know that if any extension you're going to put in URL for the domain, as you could see right here, you'd be able to query those particular type of domains, especially the ones that has to do with .gov, .edu. You'll be able to find them easy if you run in URL. On the right hand side, there is another advantage that you can apply in querying URLs. Like you can be very specific to the country where you want and that's typically a convention on certain regions or certain countries. You are given an extension or an added extension to your domain name, which makes it specific to that country or that region. So in Australia, for instance, if you use AU, Bangladesh is BD for Bangladesh, IN for India. You can include that in your in URL search to find pages that are coming from these spots or these locations. Similarly, there is a convention. Down here, you could see bbc.com could be part of the domain where BBC, I'm just, you know what, it's a British, um, I guess, broadcasting company. So it could be bbc.com, which could be an international version, or it could be a UK version. And because bbc.co.uk is typically used for sites coming in or belonging to United Kingdom, you'd be able to query it by, putting in .co.uk. So these are, the sort of information sets which are very short, precise, but very effective. I do believe we have a list of it in the book, which is, it's itemized and it's more detailed. This is just a sampler. So this could be another type of information you can use in doing your I'm going to take a break right now for 10 minutes. I have to make a call, so it might be 15 minutes, and then we'll continue with using in URL. And I'll also, I guess I didn't have to do all in URL, but we'll just look at one quick example. But mostly we'll be using in URLs. Okay. So let's take 10 minutes and see you shortly. Okay, I'm back. I think we can start. If everybody is there, let's look at this example here. The in URL is better explained if we look at the URL first, assuming that this is the URL that we are trying to get to or find words in this one. I would be able to write all in URL, which means that everything that is here, which is text, returns, 1099, should be wait a second. There is this. Okay, no, this is the example. I'm sorry. So let's look at this one. Stop jumping. Oh, stop. Sorry about that. I mean, it's been jumping quite a bit. If I have to find the words text, returns, and 1099, and I put it against all in URL, all means that it is going to have to find the links that has all three words present in them, but not necessarily in the same sequence because three of them are not placed inside of the quotation marks. That's number one reason. Second is that anything that is followed by the colon sign after all in URL are supposed to be present in any formation or anywhere in the link. So when I did all in URL, it was able to find the word text and the term 1099 and the word returns. But if instead of in URL, I just put, instead of all in URL, I used in URL, then what it would mean is to find any of these three terms, but for sure to find the word text. However, the word returns and 1099 can be optional. So it wouldn't guarantee that all of these words will be present if it was in URL. So this is the only difference. But let's look at what in URL would do if we had, instead of using all, we just put in URL. So this is in URL. When we wrote text returns 1099, within URL, it was able to find the word text and 1099, but it dropped the word returns. So basically, I got a lot more results, and they are not as specific or not as targeted. And therefore, the difference between in URL and all in URL, as in others, when we did all in text, and in title and all in title, same function, is just telling the search to find all versus find any of them. So that's when we use in URL. Here is another example of a link that you're looking at. This is coming from CNN.com. There is a date to it. The section or the category in which the page with the title Robocall Pre-Pandemic exists is actually put inside of a section called Tech or Technology. So this is how the URLs are set in CNNs. If you need to search for something in CNN, you would want to pay attention to how the URLs are set, or what is the exact DNA, or what that link usually holds in it. So it has a date as well in it, and that helps a lot. So if I had to query an article on robocalls pre-pandemic levels, for instance, you see this one, this is the title. Okay. So when you're looking for something like this and you want to be very specific, you can run a query with putting in some of these elements inside of the stem, like the date, which you can put as is. That means you're not going to use any other format except the one that is shown, or that is how it is set typically for linking to the landing pages. That's why you're going to use exactly 2021 2021 backslash 0304 exactly. Like I said, in whenever you're using in URL, you have to be precise, and you cannot make a mistake in what needs to be matched. So it has to be exact terms as they appear in the link itself. So when running or finding an article such as this one, I can always put in URL CNN.com, in URL robocalls, in URL 2020. Let's run it and see what if, whether or not it's working on, and see some variations of it. Uh, so this is the article. It took us exactly there, but notice how the URL is shown on top in your snippet. It is pretty much like simplified. The reason I say simplified is that when you see these three dots, you can actually go to the real domain, or the domain that otherwise is masked. So when you click on this, it gives you the flexible, it gives you the ability to look at the original link. So this is what the link is like. And the way it is set is in the breadcrumb format. So what the search is matching or querying is everything that is in the original link itself and not the one that is shown on top. So for you to be able to interpret or to find the actual link, you should know the structure of how the original links are set. If I now click on this and take you to the page, let's see what it's going to tell us. See on top, it is saying, it is showing the original link. And notice that when you put CNN.com, originally it is a subdomain called edition.cnn.com. It is an international edition. But what the in URL will do is also match partial words, which means it took into account CNN.com and you didn't have to put edition.cnn.com. So it was able to pick part of it. I could even write edition.cnn.com and still it would be fine. But what I'm trying to emphasize is that it is able to collect or match partial wordings as well in the in URL. And then you see this date, it picked up the date, it picked up the topic, but if we just put robocalls, it'll still be able to get us here. So supposing if we want to try another way to get to it, we could change how we writing the or use other set of data and I will change the URL a little bit here just to see the variations in how many ways you can write it. So starting with the link, supposing this is the link, and if I have to find this, I could even do URL edition.cnn.com. I could also write next to it 2021, which is a partial date. I don't have to put the whole date. I can also put in URL these words. If I just remember part of it, but I have to remember it accurately. And as I mentioned to you, that these dashes, you don't have to consider them when you're writing the search terms. So this is how I can also, or I could, this could be another way of writing the same URL. You also put the, just for comparison. This is what I used originally. So we're going to compare it. Let's say this is A and this is B. So B is the new one we did. We were very specific in A. We were able to get to that one result. But with this, we don't know how many results we are able to get because pre-pandemic could be a general term. Robocalls is not attached to it. So who knows how many articles are available. So I'm going to copy this and run it. Okay. find it. Maybe that international edition link is changed. I don't know. So I just going to do CNN.com and see if I can find the article. I think it's the same article. Yeah, it's the same article. So I'm able to get to it by making some changes in the links. See, sometimes some of the links get retired, meaning that maybe the formation of edition.cnn.com is old and Google may have dropped it. So, instead of adding the word edition, if I just lose it and just put cnn.com, I'm able to run this successfully, which is what I did here. Now, at the same time, what happens if you are looking for a source that is a news source, a general, just a generic news source with the word news in it? And I just put news and I put 2022 and I put, let's try this one. So the information I'm getting on the words pre-pandemic is now coming from a source of news. Anytime I click on this, it will take me to a source which is a news source. Similarly, in the same topic, if somebody wrote a blog, I can put a blog, the word blog here, and I should be able to see that source coming from blogs. All right. Yes, you can always use Wayback Machine. The only thing about Wayback Machine is that it just it doesn't have like everything under the sun. So it just captures it randomly. So there could be a timing difference between when it was able to pick it up, or whether it picked it up at a later date, which does not include the time frame when it was taken off. So you can check on that or try it. You should be able to get those links, or at least have some luck there, with the Wayback Machine. And do that. Um, Other examples, forum, for instance, if you want to search in the forum, you could do forum. Mm, you could even use the word URL as forums with an S, because remember, these are the words that have to make it into the stem of the link. So just so that you want to make sure that singular and plurals are included, you may want to say in URL forum or in URL forums, and then something to do with 2022. It's not guaranteed that you will always have the dates there. Sometimes a certain type of information is recycled, so intentionally they don't put the date on it so that it appears to be fresh or something that is changed a little bit. That can be replaced or added again. It's a refurbishing sometimes also. So you don't want, uh, you're not sure if the year is going to be as useful. Uh, on the other hand, if it is to do with forums, the discussion might be on topics. So you want a topic that is usually discussed a lot. So let's say COVID-19, or just the word COVID in it. So let's see if we can get to those forums. So you can get into, like specific type of forums, which can be specialized forums also, and the ones that you weren't able to discover through your regular search, you would be able to find them through a deeper search by using in URL to get into forums, or find all those forums that are available. You can also put something in on the technical side. Let's say Windows 8 or old Windows 8, for instance. You can get answers, go to the Microsoft forum directly. And if you want to get to a specific type of issue that is discussed in the forum, you can also narrow it down by, let's suppose if I just click on this one and try to understand how the links are set, just to see what type of information I could use. Perhaps I can pick this. Let me just capture the whole thing, then we'll find out. Discuss. Okay, so what this forum is, it's discussing. Okay, so if I take another link, very long URL, and I want to create a query, let me try building something mm, exactly the way it's written. Because it has the date in it. Mm, and do in URL, say the word domain. If you're having some issues with domain, or just use the word domain. I'm just using it in a generic sense. So let me try if I can get to the forum. So in URL forum, in URL 2022. Let's try it. If it doesn't work, then there we will fine tune it. First thing is singular or plural doesn't show up. So you could see that when we are doing some adjustments or trying to make it work somehow, we may want to reduce some of the restrictors in order for us to find the broader, you know, or more return results. And then perhaps we can then start to add more information. So I've reduced it from where I wanted to go with what is discovered. And who knows, this link may have been retired. So what I did is I changed it and I got rid of the word answers right here, got into Microsoft.com, because there is another reason why sometimes those links you may not be able to get to. Is one thing is, like I said, may be retired, but on the other hand, there could be mm, redirection, okay, of the links, or there could be, between when there is a time difference of when Google actually indexed a page versus when the robots went back and did not discover it again, or it was not in the same location, it gets dropped. Yet it is indexed, it is there in the memory somewhere. So it could be a chance that if it is indexed and kept there and not taken out totally from the search only because it's not popular enough or it's not been utilized for certain period of time, it may become redundant. So the search may not even get you there. So that's why you would have to, keep adjusting your query by removing certain words. And still, I think I was able to get to where I wanted to go, but got more results out of it. It was not as specific. So anything that we had to discuss about the domain would start showing up, but you would see that in the URL, the word forum is there, which means that somehow it has taken you to the forums directly instead of you, navigating through the main site, or, just getting lost in finding your target pages. So best is that you can run in URL to get to the spot or to the source, which is actually discussion, and eventually it's going to take you to the forum if you use the word forum in there. Yeah, did this example. Now I'm going to talk about the site operator. um, Site operator is another interesting one. A lot of people use the site operator, but um, not as effectively. It's because it has a lot of, it is quite versatile, and it has a way to find things from the source as well, just similar to in URL. Um, but some of the ways in which you can do it, I'm going to show you. Like this is an example. One thing about site operator is that you have to put the entire domain name in front of it. You cannot, the search is not going to consider it as a domain unless it has that extension or it has that full address in it. So let's do site colon, and for example, if I do site, I have to write AOFIRS.org. If I don't put .org, it's not going to work, because anything that is declared as a property name after the colon sign has to have the extension like .com, .org, .edu, whatever, for it to be identified with the site colon as a complete web address or a part of the web address. Um, so you can write it AOFIRS dot, you have to write it like this. You can also discover the site by doing a generic search, which means that you want to declare, you can write it either this way, you can also write it this way without the dot. It won't make any difference. Okay. Um, because there is no gap between the dot and org and no gap between the colon sign and the dot. This is treated as a domain address which is partially available. You can even do one more thing, but still not. I mean, people do that too. They think that they can put the asterisk, then put dot, and again put the org. So all the sites that has to do or has an extension .org will be discovered. So between 1, 2, 3, and 4, I would say this is the best way to find. In fact, separate this one because here we know the address. So between 2, 3, and 4, best way to write it is 3. Okay. Okay. This is not required. Same way, if you have to find information coming from .edu site, then all you'll have to do is just put .edu. You can also use .gov. You can also do, if you want something coming from, let's say, UK, you can write co.uk. You can put all those extensions. Site is the same as website, but you can't call it a website address because it would still accept partial website address or partial domain name. But it has to be recognized extensions that you can use. You know? In fact, let me just cut and paste it here just to make it better. Okay. So this is how you can get to it. So if I wanted to look for, let's say, jobs in UK, let me try that. I want to restrict my search to site and say co.uk, or I could even just yeah, co.uk. Yeah, that's what it is. And then I'd say want say in URL. I'm creating a little bit complex query. What I want is for the search to look for the words market research, uh, look for the word jobs, mm, look for them in URL or a link that had wordings uh, like career, like Mm, so even say jobs here, but this one I'm not going to put it within quotations so that job or jobs, both will work. Don't need that. This should be sufficient since I've used in URL. So it means that it is going to go to a page that has information about jobs. So site co.uk. Let's try it. So we've got indeed.com, we've got read.co.uk. So its topics are market research, and all of these are .co.uk. So all jobs are coming from UK. If I click on them, it will take me there, and it would have in the links the word career and jobs. Okay, so let's take the first one. It has the word jobs in it, had the word researcher in it, and it has the word, it took the partial word UK, didn't take CO yet, but in the other URLs or the ones, if you look at other snippets, you will find that it has um, the word co.uk. So this one has co.uk, career advice, jobs in the marketing industry. It is a very good way of finding the job opportunities. And let's create another example where I want a news coming from a source that is outside of US. Say site. Say organization. So edu. Okay, let's try edu. Educational institutes somewhere, and then let's write the term mm, textual semantics, and let's try the simpler version first. So we've got an article from harvard.edu. Um, so when you are putting the word textual semantics, that is not actually given a direction to be coming from the title part or the description or the URL. What it means is that it's going to find the textual semantics as a search term together, but it could be anywhere in the body of text. It could be in the title part or in the URL. So this is where you are not restricting the word to exist in those tags in the HTML code of the content pages. But if I want textual semantics to be included um, specifically, let's say in title, I could restrict it to in title and see if it works. If only it is available, then we'll look for it, and it has to come from the no. So they don't have anything like this available in the title. Let's see if it is available in text. It is available in the text, and you could see that it is showing in the description. And if you look at the URL, all of these URLs has the extension .edu in it. But let's suppose you don't want anything coming from PDF. Like you don't want research papers, you just want HTML, some article, something that you can read quickly. So you may want to use a minus sign and type file type and exclude PDF. So this PDF would not show up. What else you could do? You could in text. I think this should be good. So now you won't find anything in PDF. So these are all HTML coming from .edu. And what happens if you want to find these terms in more than one website or one type of website? So if I want to find it in the organizations or let's say government sites, am I able to do it? I can, but only if I put the or in between. So I cannot put two of instances of site, and you know the rule. It is an absolute command. It's a restrictor that definitely want to work by itself. However, we are going to push it a little to make it work for two sources or more than one instances of site. So I will write site gov. Let's see if it's going to do it or not. We've got .gov, .edu, .gov. So now you've got results coming from these two sources, which are considered more authentic. And if you want to do research papers, you could actually use file type PDF, and it's going to deliver something which is, in the form of research papers. I'm assuming there would be. So let me try that. So this is research paper coming from Cornell Library PDFs. All of these are PDFs. Okay. If it is a news source and I want something that says site, okay. So let me try this one. What could be the site? Has FR in it. I think it's for French. I'm just trying to recall it. French. FR. So if the site has to have something in it, I don't know what is the extension for France, but I know .co.uk is for sure. But let's say if I put FR in it, let's try it. In fact, no, why try if you don't know for a fact that it's not correct? So let me just do India, right? IN is for India. So IN in the site. Um, and in URL, want to put the word news, and in text, I mean, I'm not sure if it's in.com is correct. I'm just assuming, but we could always check it. In text could be the topic. What is it? What is easy is COVID. Just put COVID in it. Okay. So this is the news coming from India. News from India. Latest news and updates. If I click on this, it's going to be from India, assuming this is cricket next. This is coming from India also. Okay. And then, there is another thing we can use is about language. So if we can use something that would bring news in a certain language, we can also uh, put, I think I don't have, let me try, let's look at the list. I wished I had that written somewhere, but you can always look for it. These are the abbreviations which you should be familiar with. Generally, it is useful when you're using in URLs and even in site operators. So if I can quickly find it, I'll share it with you. If not, then I'll have to move on. So let me try to see. I know it's somewhere in the dates. Here it is. So in the URL, you will find sometimes there is country codes also there, and then there is languages. So if it is Mexico, MX, you would find an extension FS in it. NL, Dutch, Netherlands, and the language code is also NL. Um, Great Britain, GPEN, PHTL, these are the codes. So if I have to look for something to do with French as a language to be giving us, let's say, and I'm going to just do the in URL, not the site for this one. So just to be on the safe side, and generally that's where we use it more often because it is contained, these initials or these abbreviations are contained in the URLs mostly. So IN and HI. Okay, so let's try. In URL. mm, Let me try this. HI is, let me see where the link is going to take us. It's using HI in Hawaii. Sometimes we can see that in the URL, to be more specific and to make sure that it is coming from India, they use in the URL an abbreviation that is a combination of the country and then the language. That is pretty much like a convention. So we can even write India and then Hindi, which is the language. So when I searched for it, I got NDTV, and let's see where it's going to take me. Nikita, okay. This is all, the source is now coming from the Indian TV. It's called NDTV. Okay. So same thing I think I could do with, anyway, you get the idea. We don't have a lot of time, so we can just get an idea of how I'm writing these queries just for you to get an understanding the some of the ways that we can be more creative in using in URL. Site, you want to make sure that it is, whatever wordings you're using is part of the, or it is a convention that speaks to, or it is typical of writing domains name, or it's part of the domain name. Otherwise, it's not going to work. On the other hand, in URL, perhaps is slightly more flexible. Okay, there is another operator. And by the way, we will talk about the operator link or links. And in case, and that's going to really gel it all together. That's going to be done at the very end, after we get, acquainted with some of the other operators that is to follow. The few more we'll do. So now I'm just coming back to where I picked up the information on country codes and language. I want to give you the page number. And this page is going to explain why we pick up these abbreviations and how these can be useful in the URLs. These two URLs are given as an example. If you want to, if you want to find something that is in USA English, then these are the codes. Canadian English, these are the codes as an example. Um, Other type of codes you would find like the ones listed here. It says TR-TR, which is the country abbreviation is TR, as well as the language code is the same. So TR-TR. And this information you can pick up from the list that is given. So page 237. I'm going to finish up the lecture a little early today. I'm um, kind of under the weather today. So uh, I have to finish up a little bit early. But before I do that, I would introduce you to another operator that is called related. Has any one of you heard of the operator called related or used it ever?
No.
None of you, huh? All three of you have never used it. Okay. So what related does, and it's got kind of a limited utilization for research only because it works on large sites or well-known sites, not for everything that is, out there, which is could be, uh, you know, which could be any businesses that has been around for a long time, but it's not as big. So that operator we call related. So what related does is that it is going to find similar sites or sites that has keywords which, uh, in their keyword tags, they have those wordings that we call the keywords, and those keywords are pretty much, it's going to look for other sites that have similar keywords and are the major competitors. So if I have to look for sites similar to CNN.com, I will just write the entire address. It won't be like CNN. It has to be, the entire address of that website. So the whole domain name, cnn.com. And when I click on it, it is found all those type of sites which do same type of business. That means it is a news agency or news media sites. So USA Today, Washington Post, C-SPAN, all of these are coming as competitors for CNN. Interestingly, what you will not find, and this is unique in the sense that you won't find any results coming from CNN.com. The logic is that the related would only look for similar sites and not for the site itself that you are asking to compare it with, or which is really the standard site. So CNN.com is uh, considered as a reference point to all other sites, and therefore the CNN.com would not even show up in the results. So you can use related colon, but it doesn't work for all. Like I said, it's got a, it just gives us results on small sort of it won't internet entertain any other site which is not famous. So if AOFIRS is one .org, I don't think it's going to find anything. If it is what else? Another organization called AIIP.org, it's not going to show any results. Um, so that's where the problem is. This is where, it doesn't have all that information. Maybe they're collecting it, or they're processing it, or they're figuring it out somehow, because it's not really acting as it should with everything that is in the internet. And so we want to, what used to be, and now it is no longer as useful. There was another operator called source colon. Yeah. Source colon was something that would bring um, all different types of formats of something that you are putting in as a word, or has anything to do with the word, but it is normally used for a domain of or a recognized domain. But it's going to pull everything, including images that is related to that site. Mentions of that site is also um, part of it. So it does a very deeper sort of a search for anything related to that domain. If I wrote a of irs.org, even if there is somebody asking questions about AOFIRS, it should be collected ideally from the source. Source can be used in combination with the words also. But right now, let's just use it to find anything coming from my domain. So when I do source here, I get all kinds of my videos start to show up. Um, Other mentions, if somebody has mentioned it somewhere in their articles, or it is part of the URL or part of the description, it's going to show up. All the social media sites are also going to collect all this information. So it is literally is going to be a deeper search for anything to do with AOFIRS. Okay. .org. But if I wrote just AOFIRS, it would still work, but it'll bring me information about, where it's mentioned AOFIRS and not necessarily the domain itself. So any mention of AOFIRS anywhere, like these guys have published something about us which we don't know. We never could discover them unless we had used the operated source colon, right? I think that's as much as we're going to cover today. I'm going to see you all on Monday, and I think I'm going to finish up with advanced operators, and that's when we finish up, the introduction to advanced operator. But there is another part of your course which we call complex search queries. Um, an example of few of the instances of where we were being little more creative, that was somewhat similar to what we discuss in complex search queries. But I would prefer, or I would think that we should apply a situation, or consider the a scenario where we actually have to discover something, and then we are going to run those complex searches to find exactly what we need. So that would also combine different advanced operators that we got familiar with, and in that sense we will be, resolving um, the practical examples of how we can, in certain situations, get that specific type of more targeted results, like when for recruiters, for renting apartments, to find apartments, different situations. You can just um, think of them as a set of um, test examples of how we can find in certain type of situations, or resolve certain problems in certain type of situation. We have those chapters, they're very well organized in the book. So even if you read through the content side of the book, you could see what situations we are talking about, and perhaps there could be the ones that are more interest to you from your professional, for professional reasons, or from your needs, and what your work demands. Perhaps you can bring that in the class also, just to say that we want to talk more about this kind of a scenario or this situation. That would be more useful, I think. So with that, I'm just going to conclude our lesson today, and hope you all have a good weekend, and I'll see you on Monday. Unless you have any questions, um, you can always ask that. One of the things that we haven't finished, there are three things, and I'm going to write it, and so should you. One is that we still have to talk about asterisks. I'm going to show you some of the complexities of using asterisks, which is the wildcard. Second in my agenda would be the date ranges. Okay, like how you're going to discover certain type of content that is um, got a date range, or a period of range, which is separate from using that utility, that tool on the top, which Google Chrome provides. Because when you're building a query, it is easier and more flexible option for you to find something within certain date range. So, when you have a preference to put the date ranges in the search query, certain operators we have to talk about. Third one is the link operators, which is what I got you introduced to. So I'm going to talk about link, the date range, and asterisk. That's going to be my agenda in the first half, before we start with complex searches next Monday. So thanks again for your time, and I wish you pleasant weekend. Hopefully we'll get to see each other again on Monday. So if no questions, let's finish up, and I'm going to now shut the recording. So no questions, nothing.
Nope.
All right. Thank you. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Have a good
Bye
weekend.
bye. Yeah, you too. Bye bye.